is starting, and I believe we are live. So, folks, welcome back to another edition of Talk the Plank, of the United States Pirate Party's number one podcast in the United States. I am your host, Jolly Mitch DeVillo of the Chicagoland Nye, the Illinois Pirate Party. I am captain of the United States Pirate Party, and as always, I am a friend of the show. Speaking of friends of the show, today is part two, and we have Jacob Anders back because we had so much to talk about, we didn't get it all done. So uh, we bring Jacob back, and as a reminder, Jacob will be here in 2 days for our Pirate National Committee meeting, where he will be seeking our endorsement. Uh, Actually, Jacob, I believe you were in the comments section of our last meeting. We had an impromptu endorsement of Michael Veloff of Ohio. So we're in the endorsing spirit. So let's keep the train going. And I have to tell you, you're in good company. So that said, though, I just want to hand you the floor and say that there was a number of things that we didn't cover last time. Is there any place that you wanted to kick off this conversation?
Well, like we were discussing earlier, the Iraq war, or sorry, the Iran war is continuing. Ceasefire broken again. Gas prices going back up. I just there. It's like I've said. There's no end game here. That there's no end plan. It's just here's a ceasefire, and then it gets violated again, and of course stocks are being traded. And of course, they had a bill to ban congressional stocks, and then they attached it to the SAVE Act, which Democrats are not going to vote for. So soon you're going to see most of the Republicans come out and say, oh, hey, Democrats voted against congressional stock trading. And it's like, well, you attached it to something they're not going to vote for. So more political theater when both sides could easily come together, do the single issue vote, show where you stand on it, and anyone that votes against it is going to be in a bit of a hot water because I imagine it would pass, but they're sure making sure not to bring that to a vote. I think Congressman Thomas Massie wants to try and get it out there. So hats off to him. Much respect to him for fighting the good fight and trying to expose who's going to vote against his amendments.
And just on the subject of Thomas Massey, in 2022, Pirate Ethan Osborne ran in that congressional race against him and pulled 10,000 votes, which is no small feat in the slightest. And I just look back to that, and it's funny that, you know, he was no fan of Massey, but even he has since come forward and said, no, Massey's the only one that doesn't seem to have lost his way, which is a crazy concept, just where it was just a small 4 years ago. And not to say that Massey has suddenly had this 180 personality change, but when everything around him has lost their minds, he seems to be the only one who has kept his head. And you do come to appreciate that, and you come to hate the fact that they spent how many millions of dollars just to get rid of him.
Yep. I mean, you finally get someone with libertarian leanings in Congress, and then they do everything they can to get rid of him. An AI video, like we talked about last time. And Rand Paul, in Trump's first term, voted against Trump. I'd say he voted with Trump about 70% of the time, and now he's up to 90%. So I feel like politicians are scared. They just want to ride out the Trump era 2 more years, ride it out, and then you can go back to being more libertarian because anyone that opposes Trump in a primary gets smacked. But Massey was like, I don't care. This is what I stand for, and somehow I lose. All right. And I know there's been a lot of discussion about, well, this vote doesn't seem to make sense. And I have no investigation into Kentucky's vote system. So I'm not going to peddle conspiracy theories, but they did say there's like a lot of weird. It was just so weird, the different turnout.
I will peddle one conspiracy theory about Kentucky's electoral system, and that's Mitch McConnell's dead, and they're not disclosing that. I not only do I believe that to be true, but I also do think there's some at least merit. I don't know if there's truth, but there's at least some merit to the idea that they're withholding the fact that he died because they know that it'll trigger a special election and Thomas Massey can run for Senate and finish out the term.
Massey has so much momentum right now. Facebook groups, Massey for president 2028, Thomas Massey for president, are exploding. And it's a gigantic mix of the political spectrum. There's liberals, conservatives, libertarians, centrists. I mean, there's people in there saying, what about Jon Stewart and Thomas Massey? And the people are like, no, we need to have Marjorie Taylor Greene and Massey. So everyone is coming from a different side of the spectrum, but they're all like, Thomas Massey's a truth teller. I'm over here on the left on a lot of welfare and social welfare based systems, but when you see somebody principled in an era where principle is gone, I personally respect it. I like talking to and debating libertarians because their arguments don't come from vibes or what they're feeling. They're like, well, there's a non-aggression principle, and this is how I work it out and round it out. And I don't know, it's like talking to somebody that takes theory seriously, and I enjoyed that personally. But yeah, Thomas Massey. I even saw some Facebook post, which of course, fact check that, that they're like, Thomas Massey's talking about running for president 2028. So it sounds like he wants to fight. He's welcoming all the fights, all the criticisms. He's posting provocatively to get his name going. So I think he has plans to do something. Like you said, Senate, whole state of Kentucky, or man, if he runs in the Republican primary, I hope it's not another Ron Paul, but I feel like Massey's more populist than Paul.
I do agree, but you say Ron Paul and you get shudders and you think back to now. I was a little young and not as interested in politics as I would be 4 years after the fact. But in looking back at the 2012 election and especially the Republican primary, it seems it's almost a mirror of what the Democrat or what the DNC did to Bernie Sanders is what the RNC did to Ron Paul, and actively trying to keep him out and cheat him out of any publicity. And it just seemed almost I don't want to call it a coordinated effort, but almost a coordinated effort to suppress. And when you have all the momentum and all the voice of the people, and they're listening to you and you have their ear, and it is in spite of the fact that they're actively working against you and they're spending all this money, and they're trying their hardest to make you look bad and say that you're unfit to rule, and they even took your job. You're not going to be a congressman come January. uh you do have to admire a guy that says, I am standing on principle and I'm standing up for what I believe in. And his principle has been consistently libertarian throughout. He has been 100% a government shouldn't intervene type of cat. And whereas there are certain limitations, I do disagree with Thomas Massey on a certain number of things. Not like, I don't want to pretend me and Massey are like this. I would say he's a right leaning libertarian, whereas you or I would be a left leaning libertarian. But I would still say the libertarian aspect that we all share is one that I admire deeply. And the fact that he's stuck to his libertarian guns is incredible. And I will say that if there is going to be a Thomas Massey presidency, I think his vice presidential running mate would be Justin Amash, but that's, I suppose, beside the point.
Yeah, I've always said since I was a teenager and I first got into politics and I found out, I was aligned with Libertarian and Green Party. I was just like, why can't we just replace Democrats and Republicans with Libertarians and Greens? They agree on stopping the Afghanistan and Iraq war. And then our disagreement is taxation and social welfare. And that's my only problem with Massey is that he recognizes that the insurance companies are just gouging the people. And I saw him make a post about it, and I'm like, man, if Thomas Massey would just be like, you know what, capitalism for everything except healthcare. This just isn't working. The government, we could fund it, cut out the middlemen, enact standards, make sure there's no more out of network nonsense. You just go to a doctor, you're an American citizen, here's your health care. If he did a real centrist populist platform, because keep in mind, Donald Trump did a centrist populist platform. He was like, healthcare for everybody. People are like, what's your plan? He's like, well, I don't want anybody to steal my plan. So he said it. He talked the talk. But if Massey came up with a plan, it would be based in legislation, based in reality, not what was it called? An idea of a plan, a semblance of a plan. Oh man, there's just been so many memes with this presidency. A concept of a plan. Oh, that's what they called it. We have a concept of a plan. It's like, no, dude. Like, write up some legislation. You use the AI if you have to, because I know the administration's using AI to write some of their stuff now. Anytime I see a double M dash
Yeah.
in a tweet, and it's like, how are you so lazy to not write tweets if they're limited by characters?
Right. God, no, that's sad. Also, AI could have never made the Barney Frank tweet, so I don't know why he's not just trying to tweet. But I guess at 80 years old, I'd prefer my politicians to be off Twitter and more focused on legislating to begin with. But I guess that's beside the point. I just feel like this needs to be a statement. This isn't directed at you. This is directed at the public. Politicians don't need to be good posters. That's insane. You people are fucking nuts if you think, well, he's not good at the internet, so he's not going to, they shouldn't be a politician. Are you fucking mad? Are you nuts? If someone has good policy, that should be it. And the fact that, like, somehow, and I know it's a popularity contest at the end of the day, but the fact that people can genuinely be like, well, he's not a good poster, so I don't know if I could support. I don't care. If someone is a good poster, you shouldn't support him just on that basis. It's ridiculous. Trump might be in his prime one of the greatest posters of all time, and I will never correlate that with him being a good politician or a good president. Two completely separate things, and I think people need to recognize that.
He's an excellent shit poster.
Yes, absolutely. He also changed the English language fundamentally from how good he is at shit posting. Also, I forgot about the concept of a plan quote. It's the most Homer Simpson like thing I think I've ever heard a politician say. We have a concept of a plan. It's
at least it's like me and you were talking about last time. It's like, at least be honest. Like, well, we don't have the details yet. We're still hammering it out. But he wasn't even working on a healthcare plan. He was just saying what you wanted to hear. It's like, everyone will have healthcare. All right. In what way? It's like, no, there's no plan. He's just telling you what you want to hear. So he's the anti-war candidate, and now we're in a war slash conflict slash whatever you're supposed to call it. I know we're depleting our our military reserves on a conflict that what are we going to get out of it? I mean, this is a strait mostly owned by Iran, Oman, the UAE, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, then up in the Gulf with Iraq and Kuwait, and it's like that's who should be keeping the peace in the area. I know we keep our navy nearby to help with any terrorists trying to sink ships, and so if he's Mr. Art of the Deal, where's the deal? And you're like, okay, we got a ceasefire, and then the ceasefire is broken, and now we're back to bombing, and it's just where does this go? Is this cycle going to continue into November? Is this because if it does, a lot of conservatives were already pissed about this. I saw a headline, didn't read the full article, but it said something about MAGA is abandoning Trump over the Iran war, and maybe it's a poll that was conducted, and we all know polls are people that pick up the phone. So I just I don't understand. Regime change is impossible. It's a hydra. You cut off one head, the other head takes over. They have a chain of people, and it's not. And us bombing them is only uniting the people. All the separatist movements are just putting aside their differences and being like, all right, let's unite. Let's get the USA to stop bullying us, and then we'll get back to infighting. So it's just they call it fatigue, exhaustion. The people are fed up with it, and especially when you throw gas prices on top of it. America is a car-based society if you're going to travel anywhere. And I I just I can't make any predictions about how the November election is going to go because it's like, is this administration going to keep fumbling the ball, throwing interceptions over and over and over again? Or are they going to clean up, get the economy back in order right before vote time, and then go from there? Some other question. One of my other questions was for your campaign. Have you been talking about it on Talk the Plank?
Not yet. So, for those of you actually who are perhaps interested in what's going on, I'm running for Midlothian, Illinois' Village Board of Trustees. That is simply a position that I feel. Well, first of all, in the Pirate Party, we always preach run for something, and if you do, run local, because locally we see a lot of change. That's where you're going to feel the most change in your life immediately. Not to say that running for federal or state office is, unimportant task. But if you're serious about, like, I think I need to make change right now, then we always say, then look at local offices. We need pirates in library boards and school boards and pirate sheriffs just as bad as we need a pirate governor. And we do need all those things. But right now I'm trying to be a pirate village board trustee. Uh, in Illinois, it's a little unusual because it's a nonpartisan race in the sense that there's no primary, but I can still collect the signatures and appear as a member of the Midlothian Pirate Party on the ballot. So I can be the first pirate in Illinois to appear as a member of the Pirate Party on the ballot, and I will hang my hat on that forever. Of course, it would be so much better if I win. My big issue with that has been the flock cameras that have been popping up in Midlothian. I, being a part of the pirate party, as anyone who supports us can imagine, we're anti-surveillance state. For years, we have been conducting camera walks in which we would invite pirates to just go for a walk and take a photo or mark on open street maps every camera you see, and everyone who does it tells you, like, yeah, after a block, I can't believe how many cameras I saw. And you come to realize, like, we are being surveilled at every angle. And I feel the flock cameras are some of the most egregious cases now, where it's a constant surveillance of all the cars and your routines and your habits. And when I brought this up, I actually went to the last village board meeting in Midlothian. What was it, Wednesday? Every second and fourth Wednesday, Midlothian hosts a village board meeting. I said I will show up and I will ask them the question. And instead of being confrontational, I simply phrased it as, I'm worried about them. I think it's a Fourth Amendment right. Are you considering renewing the contract or would you consider canceling it? Which I think is a very softball way of saying, I don't like this. What are you going to do about it? And of the six trustees that are elected, six or eight, I can't remember off the top of my head, uh, all of them plus the mayor said, no, we're pro Flock. We love Flock. Flock has been great. It helped solve a murder in Midlothian 4 years ago. So that justifies us losing our privacy for a murder that was solved 4 years ago. A GameStop was robbed and we found the people who did it. Great. I'm sure you could have did that without spying on us and collecting our day-to-day information. They said to me, the police chief said to me that they're only looking for hot vehicles and they're not just surveilling everybody. You have to surveil everyone to find hot vehicles. So I don't know if they're trying to play me a fool or if they're just being told say this if they ask you about it. But regardless, it was a clear sign that every single elected board member of the Midlothian Village Board of Trustees, and the mayor included, who, by the way, to be clear, if anyone's trying to clip this, I have nothing but respect for the village board of trustees and the mayor. I find them to be good people and my neighbors first and foremost. However, they are all wrong about the Flock contract. I think that they, signed this contract with good intention. I will give them the benefit of the doubt. But knowing what we know now, you have to be completely ignorant to not see this as the violation that it is. And even if you want to say it wasn't this at first, you have to admit it's what it has become. And I just believe that Midlothian would be better off we canceled our contract and tore down our cameras. And after the meeting, after I felt ganged up on by the village board, two residents of Midlothian came up to me and said, "Thank you for bringing it up. We're anti Flock, and we didn't even know Midlothian had a contract with them." So immediately, I felt vindicated that the cause I was taking up was worth it. And we speak about moving past petty differences to get things done, and they're moving us apart, the infighting to get shit done. When you have a cause to rally around and you can draw from, and we say both sides of the aisle, even though that I think in general, political designation is far more complicated than, having one or two sides. Maybe not in the corporate political world, but in general with people. The median voter is a complicated beast. But when you have something that so many people are popularly saying, no, I don't think this is right, and the only people who are supportive of it are police officers and elected officials, then we have to sit down and say, just because everyone who's elected is agreeing with it doesn't mean it's the popular position. And if the people don't want it, just because you think it's an asset, you know who else? Communist China would froth at the mouth to have this kind of technology. And they probably do. I'm sorry, but I was taught that communism is a big, bad, scary thing because even though they have their health care and they eradicated the extreme poverty in China, they're living under a surveillance state, and we can never want that. Okay, so now I have the excesses of capitalism, no health care, and there's still poverty in this country, and you're spying on me. So you're giving me nothing and giving me the worst of communist China. So what are we getting out of this deal? Where are the politicians that say, I genuinely do listen to the people and care about what they're saying? But we live in a society which, if there's one thing, by the way, if the Epstein files prove nothing, not the controversy surrounding them, but more so what's inside of them, is the powers that be are deathly afraid of the common man and the people. And they are genuinely afraid that one day they may do something that's going to cause the people to rise against them. And I'm not saying a communist revolution. I'm not saying a general revolution. I'm not calling it a second American revolution. I just think they're worried about something like what happened with what allegedly happened to Luigi Mangione, where a kid snapped and shot a CEO, allegedly. They think that this could happen to them at any point. And I feel like that is why they're so complacent in putting up these cameras, because they want to keep us in the panopticon and say we want to keep an eye on these people at all times, quash dissent, quell dissent before it has a chance to rise. And it's devastating to watch, especially as an innocent civilian and someone who doesn't hate this country, someone who looks at this country and says, "Well, I'm just a law-abiding citizen and I care about, my people and I don't want my government to be corrupt." And they're so afraid of us retaliating to their corruptness that they're out corrupting the last thing they did the day before in order to crack down on their own corruption. And it's devastating. And I'm not a criminal for wanting better. I shouldn't be on a list for wanting different from our politicians. And I don't know if I'm on a list. I'm clarifying that I think minor parties in the United States have been designated as like some type of extremist group, if I'm not mistaken. And do not hold me to this, because I don't think there's anything that says the United States Pirate Party is one of these people. But I think they observe minor parties and independents as anti-status quo and thus worthy of observation, which I think is completely hogwash. But that's tangent over. My apologies. I am running for Midlothian Village Board, and if you live in Midlothian, Illinois, if you somehow came across this and you live in Midlothian, I want to cancel our flock cameras, because neighbors, I don't want them spying on us. We can stop crime other ways. I support our first responders. I do not support our first responders spying on us to keep us safe. We don't need this. We can keep our privacy and keep our neighborhood safe. Tangent over. Jacob, thank you for letting me plug that. I wasn't planning on it, and folks, I don't plan on making too big of a fuss out of it. I know I have a large platform that I can use to promote myself, but I actively choose not to promote myself. I don't wish to make it about me. The captain's running for something. Hey, everyone, look at the captain. I prefer to put the spotlight on people like yourself, because I think that an independent running an honest campaign is more important than look at the captain of the pirate party doing something. Uh, that said, though, you are running an honest campaign and you are running for congressional district in Tennessee. So you sought out the pirate party. There was obviously enough overlap, and I gotta tell you, as man who leads the pirate party, so far I like what I'm hearing. Everything you sound very piratey. If you weren't already a pirate party member, I would assume you were. So just can you explain a little bit more, I guess, to the pirate audience, why on the 26th the Pirate National Committee should go ahead with the endorsement? What is it about you that says, well, I'm just as pirate as the rest of them?
Well, first of all, like I personally dug into your congressional run and your village run, and I was curious about it. So I don't mind you taking up time. Might lead to part three, who knows? But definitely give other candidates a chance. I met a Tennessee governor candidate who just got the endorsement of the Tennessee Green Party. And he's asking me, like, hey, how do you like get in touch with third parties? And I'm like, well, you might want to talk to the Pirate Party, because if you're a Green Party kind of dude, there's probably overlap. And to answer your other question, like I said, when I first looked at the Pirate Party, I was like, okay, so are they just for internet piracy, just making it legal? And I look into it, it's like, no, it's not that. It's like we actually have serious positions on copyright law, patent law, and just civil liberties, economic liberties, just things that make sense to normal people, but things that don't really get discussed. I mean, you have pints and politics over at your local bar. Patent law is not what comes up. Property tax comes up, healthcare, war, the bigger things. But your party is focused more on these, I don't want to say obscure or niche, but lesser talked about issues. So once I learned what you guys stood for, I was like, all right, let's reach out. And I joined your Discord, and everybody's really chill, just discussing current events. And then, of course, I didn't have ballot access in the spring until they did the crazy redistricting, which a lot of people are calling racist or unfair. I mean, cutting cities into thirds, that's kind of crazy to me personally, on a just as someone who plays a lot of grand strategy map games. We call it border gore. The it's gore in the border. It looks disgusting. Like borders should be kind of shaped around natural features or county lines at least. So I saw what you guys stood for, and I'm like, wow, awesome. And then I dug into your platform, like, all right, well, the leader of the Pirate Party, I mean, I'd vote for him. So, oh, and also to touch upon what you said about running locally first, that is an excellent idea. I'm running for Congress, and Congress covers like 100,000 people or more, depending on the state. And that's because, well, that's a whole other issue. But it's hard to cover that much territory as a newbie or noob politician unless you're rich. If you're rich and you've joined the Pirate Party and you want to go wild, go for it. But if you're someone like me, someone like Mitch, middle class, lower class, normal person, run for something local. The signature or dollar requirement will be much lower. Your area that you have to go knock on doors, which is the most important thing for a politician, is to be able to knock on a door, talk to a person, pitch what you want to do, and then transfer the conversation into, okay, so you're my potential constituent. What are your concerns? Once you do that, depending on your anxiety, your public speaking skills, it might take you 2 days, it might take you 2 months. But running that initial campaign, win or lose, and it doesn't matter if you lose, lots of people, famous presidents, lost multiple races before they got in there. I think FDR was a failed vice presidential candidate, but he kept going and became one of the most iconic presidents of all time. So, anyone out there, please run for something. Find out what your constituents want. Because if you're a pirate, you're obviously somewhat populist. You're like, okay, this is what my neighbors want. I agree with what my neighbors want. Let's push that policy. And that's a big problem with other minor parties. I've reached out to socialist parties talking about, hey, what if we get capitalism out of the health insurance and healthcare industry? And they'll say, no, we are strictly revolutionary. We are not reformist. We are not compromise. We respect you. You're cool. Hard no. And you got to take that. But I've noticed the Pirate Party is willing to at least talk to people, find out what they stand for, what they're like. And I just got to say, I have massive respect for the Pirate Party. I have massive respect for the way you run these interviews. Kind of curious who you take after. So I know you're a big WWE guy, but you're not very bombastic. You're very consensus.
Well, I am a big WWE guy. I'm actually in the professional wrestling business on top of it. I don't know if I've ever disclosed that information to you or to. I've maybe a few interviews. If you're deep into your pirate lore, you may know this, but I am a graduate of the House of Truth Wrestling School in Detroit, Michigan, and I am a professional wrestler on the side. I actually today is Friday the 24th. That means 2 weeks ago, I was in Clifton, Illinois, and I wrestled the Night Reaper for Southland Championship Wrestling. You can find that on YouTube. Cool Daddy Cool versus the Night Reaper. Which the gimmick, the mask, it's ignore the name if you know where the name comes from. But besides that, everything about it is that's as bombastic as you'll see me. Where that's me perhaps turned up to 11. Where I understand I'm a little bit of a uh, maybe a goofy guy, and I understand that I'm not trying to hide that fact, but I think at the very least, I appreciate a good amount of measure and a good amount of thought put into what you say. And if you're looking at like who I look up to, ironically enough, my favorite modern politician would be former professional wrestler Jesse the Body Ventura, uh, who again, one term guy, had a goal, got the goals done, and actually, he didn't leave because he said he got his goals done. He left because he said he felt his family was being threatened and he walked away. A man who prioritized his family and his well-being, the well-being of the people around him over, I want to seek power and maintain power. He considered the people around him more than he considered himself, and I deeply admire that. Other than that, I think throughout history, the John Quincy Adams of the worlds have always piqued my interest. Recently, I've been reading up on Chester Arthur, and that guy was corrupt as fuck until he became the president. And there's something about that I really, I'm like, what flipped on him? And I'm trying to figure that one out. And I don't have my answers yet, but I'm running with the idea that he had a woman who was writing him letters in his ear, and she's like, "You have the opportunity to be great. Don't fuck this up." And he like took that to heart. And I believe that was he was widowed the year before, and I think a man in that kind of mindset suddenly having someone tell him they believe in him again. And again, I'm no psychologist. This is all speculation on my end, but I find Arthur's story to be incredibly fascinating. He's also probably a prick, but other than that, he's a fascinating figure. I wouldn't say I look up to him, but in terms of like who I've been looking up at lately, I'm like, oh, Arthur's kind of got something to him, but he did some major reforms. He got rid of the spoil system. A guy who benefited from the spoil system, and he ended up getting rid of it. So for that alone, I'm kind of like, all right, I see what you're doing. I kind of like that. Uh, Again, I apologize about my tangent on Chester A. Arthur. My apologies. Uh, but no, I've always appreciated the honest politician. I I think that sometimes you see politicians measured based on like how often they win elections, and that's their success rate, and how often they win the election, their election is how good of a politician they are. And I just don't believe that to be the case. I think some of the best politicians this country's ever seen and ever had have only won maybe one time before they were driven out of office, or won twice over before they finally, made enough enemies and couldn't run anymore. I often find the most honest politicians to be the ones who ran as independents and minor parties after it was all said and done. Not because they thought that, you know, I want to be president, I want to do it my way. But a lot of them chose the independent or minor party path because this machine is too corrupt and we have to fight it from the outside and tell people to look at it. And actions like that I deeply admire. And no matter what, at the end of the day, anyone that's willing to call it the machine and call it the corruption that we see ruling down on us, I deeply admire. So that is my I the Henry Georges of the world I also admire. So it's I if you are bald and not power hungry, that seems to be what my people are based on observation. I don't know if there's correlation and causation, but they certainly are shiny up top. I'm the first pro bald politician.
Bald guys matter too, and hey, bald ladies, any bald kids,
That's right.
everyone. I mean,
I support every bald person except that little snot Caillou.
oh man, oh man, Caillou. Yeah, I don't let the kids watch Caillou. That's out of the question. Sticking to Blues Clues. Mm.
Absolutely. I had an old teacher who was like, she used to take 10-minute like deviations from the course just so she could rant about how much she hated Caillou. I missed that class. It was art class. It kind of rocked. Uh, but Caillou, art class, tangents aside, we have a few minutes left. Is there anything? And believe I'm not taking part three off the table. I think I'm more than happy to continue these conversations. But is there anything in the final minutes of part two you wanted to speak on, get off your chest? Any comments, gripes, concerns? The floor is yours.
Well, I find it so hard to talk about myself when I've got this great interest in the pirate party because I'm wondering, like, I don't know if you read my email about where you're taking it in the future yet.
Sorry, trying to unmute. So I did check the email. I apologize. My work schedule has been completely fucked up all week. And it's changing again on me because my bosses love doing that to me. However, I will respond to your email in full when I can actually sit down, read it out, and I want to give you a more
Okay.
thought out process. But I did see it and I will respond to you.
All
Uh,
right.
I saw a peak, and what I thought I read was something about the primaries in terms of the other one of the main parties and trying to cause a stir. I will say that I will not be running for president. A, because I'm not 35, but also B, because I don't think I ever want to be president of the United States ever in my life. I have told everyone in the Pirate Party, if you nominate me, I will deny the nomination, and I don't want it. Uh, Speaking of honorable bald men who I admire, James Garfield didn't want to be president either, and I think that's why he ended up being such a noble president for those 2 months he was alive to be president. Vehemently denied it.
Gotcha. All right, so you're not primed for the future of the pirate party right now, but let's see things I could pitch to folks if they haven't really gotten deep into my policies. I support passing the PRO Act, allowing people to organize. There's a lot of talk about right to work states, and they call it right to work, but that just means you don't have a right to join a union. So it's like 1984 misleading language.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
right to fuck over the unions.
yeah. And I feel like, isn't that part of freedom is being able to join a union? I mean, saying you can't join a union, the workers can't organize. Well, that sound like why should the government say you can't do that? That's not freedom. That doesn't make sense. I mean, it makes sense if you're a business owner and you hate unions.
You,
So,
and
uh,
I can only imagine if you hate unions, you must be a business owner. Uh,
it's like
but
what are you scared of? What are you
yeah,
scared of?
what do you hate the weekend? Are you mad you're working 8 hours a day? What's wrong with you? But I come from a pro union family, as you can tell, and I'm sure you seem very pro labor, pro union yourself. So I just wanted to say to anyone who's watching from home, if you can join a union, uh, start a union at work. Well, folks, part two, I will wrap it up because I'm confident there will be a part three, and we will continue this conversation. And I will get back on a thoroughly thought out and typed up email to respond to the and see what we can work with. But folks, This has been part 2 of what's shaping up to be a 3-parter with congressional candidate Jacob Anders. Jacob, thank you so much for joining us today. And you know what? I'm going to do with you what I normally do to end the meetings. You'll hear it in 2 days when Jacob seeks our nomination for our endorsement. But Jacob, do you know why I love this party?
Why you say that?
I love this party because we believe the United States should be a good neighbor. We believe in cool, clean water, like Hank said. And we believe that if purchasing isn't ownership, well, then piracy isn't theft. Folks, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the 26th, and we'll get back to part 3 as quick as we can. Vote pirate, and victory is ours.
I will definitely be sending other candidates your way. Now I know how open you guys are. I'm like, all right, we're going to reach out to people, mostly independents. We're independent leaning people. I'm going to send them your way. And I think we're going to have Talk the Plank. It's going to be a good thing to have for all of 2026.
Absolutely. And folks, we're trying to keep Talk the Plank going. Apologies for the episodes being sporadic, but we will continue on. And any candidate, if you're running for office, if you're a candidate running for office and you want the endorsement of the Pirate Party, we'll invite you on. We'll let you pitch your campaign. If we're really having fun, we'll bring you on for 3 episodes. And if you if we like the cut of your jib, join us for a Pirate National Committee meeting, and we'll work on endorsing you. But being here allows you to pitch your campaign without having to do the whole elevator pitch at the meeting. So this works out well for everybody. And of course, people love to go back and watch these episodes. Thank you again, folks.